Marcus woke to his daughter's laughter, the sound that had become his compass for 11 years. Emma was already in the kitchen, and he could hear the plastic bag of cinnamon rolls crinkling, the slight drag of a chair across tile. His body kept time without clocks. 6:47 a.m. He moved through his morning with precision. The shower, clothes laid out in order. Coffee made the same way every morning, 2 scoops, filtered water at exactly 195 degrees. When Emma emerged, he listened to her describe her dream the way he'd taught himself to listen, because listening was the only way he could see her. "Dad, are we doing the thing today?" she asked. The thing was their Saturday tradition, breakfast together before his shift. "Every Saturday," he said, and she smiled. Marcus worked at Precision Phone Repair, a small shop downtown. His boss, Derek, had hired him 8 years ago as an act of charity, then discovered within 2 weeks that Marcus was the best diagnostician he'd ever hired. Blindness made Marcus exceptional at understanding problems he couldn't see directly. He listened to devices, felt their weight, understood their failures through intuition. Customers asked for him by name. What most people didn't understand was that his blindness had nothing to do with his competence. It was almost irrelevant. What mattered was that Marcus had learned to pay attention in ways most sighted people never managed. He listened for the small sounds that indicated real problems. He felt subtle variations in texture and weight. The world was far more accessible once you stopped expecting it to be designed for you. By 4:45 p.m. that Saturday, Marcus had locked up and made his way home to pick up Emma. The building where they lived was a converted warehouse in the Arts District, affordable enough for a single father on a repair technician's salary, but with high enough ceilings to feel spacious. He'd chosen it deliberately. Space meant freedom. He took the elevator to the 4th floor, but when he stepped out into the hallway, something registered. A sound, a disturbance in the air, something that wasn't supposed to be there. He moved toward the emergency stairwell. His cane found the metal door. He pressed it open. The roof access was something he'd explored when he'd first moved in. Marcus liked to know where everything was in his own life. When he reached the roof, he heard breathing, ragged breathing, panicked breathing. There was a woman on the roof. Later he would learn her name was Catherine Voss, CEO of Voss Technologies. She was wearing an expensive dress, torn at the shoulder. Her breathing suggested fear and pain. "It's okay," Marcus said, his voice calm, the voice he used with Emma when she was scared. "I'm not here to hurt you. My name is Marcus. I live in the building. Can you tell me your name?" "Catherine," she whispered. "Catherine, can you move? Are you hurt?" Through careful questioning, Marcus determined her left ankle was likely sprained, her shoulder bleeding. She couldn't remember how she'd gotten to the roof. She couldn't remember much except running, trying to get away, climbing stairs without thinking. "I'm going to help you," Marcus said. "I'm going to sit here with you. Is that okay?" She nodded. He heard it in her breathing, in the slight shift of her body. Marcus settled himself on the cold roof beside her, close enough to be present, but not so close that he invaded what little space she had left. He understood, through some intuition he'd never questioned, that she needed to feel like she had control. So he sat in silence, letting her know he was there without demanding anything. "How are you blind?" she asked after several minutes. "A car accident when I was 16, Marcus said. "I've had a long time to get used to it. Does it get better? Getting used to things?" He thought about this honestly. "You don't get used to them. You just learn to see in a different way." She cried then, quietly, the kind of crying that suggested something deeper than physical pain. Marcus stayed beside her, not offering platitudes or rescue fantasies. He simply remained. Presence, he'd learned, was underrated. It took 40 minutes for the police and paramedics to arrive. Catherine had called them once. Marcus helped her sit up enough to use her phone. She told them she'd been at a rooftop bar with colleagues and had left through the wrong door, trying to escape something, though she wasn't entirely clear what. A moment of panic, a need to disappear. She was taken to a hospital for a sprained ankle, minor lacerations, and what they suspected might be shock. As they prepared to carry her downstairs, Catherine looked toward Marcus. "Thank you," she said. "You're welcome," Marcus replied. "I hope you feel better." He didn't expect to see her again. 2 days later, Derek called him into the back office. "You're getting a visitor, a woman named Catherine Voss. She's coming at noon." Marcus felt something shift. Not anticipation exactly, but curiosity. He prepared the way he prepared for everything, by being present and honest. Catherine arrived at 12:15 p.m. Derek announced her, then disappeared, understanding that something was happening that required privacy. Marcus heard her careful walking, her ankle still bothering her though she was managing it. "Hello, Marcus," she said. "Hello, Catherine. How's your ankle?" "Better. The doctor said another week and it'll be fine." She paused. "I came to thank you properly and to ask you something." "Ask away." "Why did you help me? I'm a stranger. You didn't know who I was, what I'd done to deserve being on that roof, or what helping me would cost you." Marcus thought about this carefully. "I helped you because you needed help. I didn't think beyond that." "That's not normal," Catherine said. "No," Marcus agreed. "Most people probably would have called 911 from their apartment." "That's not what I mean." She sat down. "Most people help because they expect something in return, or they help because they think it makes them good, or they help because they need to feel like they matter, but you helped without agenda. Without expecting me to become grateful or indebted or transformed by your kindness." Marcus nodded slowly. "Is that unusual for you?" "It's unprecedented for me," Catherine said. "In my entire life, every interaction has been transactional. People want something from me, money, connections, status. My friends want the best version of me reflected back at them. My employees want my direction. And I've spent so long being useful that I've almost forgotten what it feels like to just be." Marcus understood in that moment that this woman had been describing loneliness while surrounded by millions of people who wanted pieces of her. "What do you want me to say?" he asked. "I want to know who you are," Catherine said. "Beyond the kindness, I want to understand what makes you different." So Marcus told her. He told her about Emma, about widowhood, about learning to navigate the world without sight, and discovering that most people were navigating their own blindness, too busy chasing reflections to see what was actually in front of them. He told her about the phone shop, about Derek, about Saturday breakfasts with his daughter. He told her about routine and attention and the way that small acts of care, repeated consistently, created a kind of architecture that held a life together. Catherine listened the way Marcus had once listened to her, like his words actually meant something. "I want to hire you," she said when he finished. "I already have a job," Marcus replied. "Not as an employee, as a consultant. I'm building something new, a technology initiative for accessibility. I need someone who understands accessibility, not because it's a market opportunity, but because it's real life. Someone who thinks beyond what things look like. Someone like you." Marcus felt Emma in his mind. Emma, who needed him to be present, who needed her father to be solid and reliable. "I can't leave Derek." "Then Derek and I will figure it out," Catherine said. "But I'm not leaving without something. I'm leaving with your phone number, and I'm going to call you, and we're going to talk about how someone like you could change everything." She did call. Catherine tried several times to make it a transaction, offering money, stock options, the things she believed people wanted. But Marcus didn't want those things. What he wanted was to keep picking up Emma from school. What he wanted was to keep working at the phone shop. What he wanted was to stay in the life he'd built, because he'd built it carefully, and it was working. What changed gradually was Catherine. She began to visit the shop on Saturdays. She'd sit in the back and listen to Marcus work, listen to how he diagnosed problems, how he spoke to Derek, how he talked to customers. She'd watch him handle his blindness with the kind of grace that came from acceptance rather than triumph. One day, about 3 months after the roof, she asked if she could meet Emma. Marcus almost said no. Emma was sacred territory. But something in the way Catherine asked Not expecting, not assuming, simply asking, made him understand that she was asking for permission to see the whole picture, not just the parts he'd shared. They met at their Saturday breakfast place, a diner that made excellent pancakes and didn't care if you were blind or wealthy or both. Emma was cautious at first, protective of her father. But Catherine had learned something in those 3 months of listening to Marcus in the phone shop. She'd learned how to be silent, how to be present without needing to fill the space with her own importance. By the end of breakfast, Emma was asking Catherine questions about technology. Catherine was explaining how computers worked in a way that made Emma understand not just the what, but the why. And Marcus was listening to both of them, understanding that something was reorganizing itself, shifting, becoming something neither of them had expected. "Why are you here?" Emma asked Catherine, point blank, the way children do. Catherine looked toward Marcus. "Because your dad helped me when I needed it most, and then he kept helping me by just being himself. And I wanted to understand how someone like that exists in the world." "He's a good dad," Emma said, as if that explained everything. "He is," Catherine agreed. "This is where the story could end, where you might expect a romantic resolution. But this isn't that story. What happened was quieter and more profound." Catherine returned to her company, but she built it differently. She built accessibility features that mattered because she'd listened to Marcus describe how the world looked when you couldn't see it. She promoted people who showed real character rather than just ambition. She restructured her executive team around presence and honesty instead of performance and competition. In the background, Marcus continued to work at the phone shop. He continued to pick up Emma from school. He continued to have Saturday breakfasts. The difference was that now, sometimes, Catherine joined them, not as a savior, not as a benefactor, but as someone who'd learned that the rarest thing in the world wasn't power or wealth or success. It was being truly seen by another human being. The real turnaround came in the final conversation they had about what happened on that roof. They were sitting in Marcus's apartment, and Catherine asked the question she'd been building toward for months. "When you sat with me that night, when I was hurt and terrified, did you know who I was? Did you know I was the CEO of a major company?" "No," Marcus said. "I didn't know anything about you except that you needed help. If you had known, would you have helped differently?" Marcus thought about this. "I might have been intimidated. I might have worried about doing the right thing. I might have performed instead of just been present." "That's the point," Catherine said quietly. "You couldn't perform for me because you couldn't see me, so you had no choice but to be real." And that was the revelation. That was what reframed everything. Marcus's blindness wasn't a limitation that made his goodness more impressive. It was the thing that freed him to be genuinely present with another human being. He couldn't perform for Catherine because performance required visual feedback. He couldn't manage her impression of him because impression management is rooted in how things look. He could only be honest. He could only be present. He could only offer what he actually had. Catherine had spent her entire life being seen by millions of people, recognized, celebrated, envied, wanted, but she'd never been truly seen. She'd never encountered someone who couldn't benefit from her power, couldn't use her influence, couldn't gain anything by understanding her deeper self. Until she found a blind man on a roof who helped her simply because that's what you do when you find someone in need. The invisible had become visible. The sightless had become the one who truly saw. And the most powerful woman in the room discovered that power meant nothing compared to presence.